how do you avoid getting screwed at the closings of your real estate deals? This can happen to pretty much anybody who has a fix and flip project. You get it locked up for a great price. You're going to make a nice $15,000, $20,000, maybe $30,000. Then the day of the closing comes, or not the day of the closing, you get within maybe a week of the closing, and all of a sudden the inspector comes and you watch your profits drain like your bank account in Vegas with a gambling problem. My name's Dustin.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Corey.
We're the Wholesale Daily Show, bringing you tips on how to wholesale, fix and flip, tax liens and deeds 5 days a week. If you're new to the channel, go ahead, hit that subscribe button to be up to date with us. And let's dive in. So how do you not get screwed on a closing? So if you've never done a deal before, or if you haven't done that many deals, one of the things that's going to happen on your fix and flips, especially if you don't have a lot of experience, is the following. You get a great deal on a house. It's a smoking deal. From there, you realize, hey, if I put a little bit of money into this thing, it's going to be worth an extra 10 or 20 or 30 grand. I just need to go and get a contractor in and get this thing fixed up. So you go, you get the property fixed up, you find a buyer, they love the house. Then all of a sudden, it's inspection time. And this is where the hole in the boat starts to happen. Yep. And your profits can be sucked out. So Josh has been dealing with many of our contractors, and man, we have been screwed over many times this year on closings. Like properties that we think have like $10,000, $20,000 in profits, all of a sudden they're wanting us to pay them to close. Mm-hmm. And that's just not a good time. It's a buzzkill. So we want to share with you some of the things that can happen there. So as I mentioned a second ago, what's going to happen is if you're hiring contractors, this is going to be a scenario that you really, really need to watch out for. So Josh, you want to share with them kind of what we've learned from getting screwed over? Share with them, an example of one of our horror story deals, what we learned from it, and what they can implement.
Great. Sounds good. Yeah, when people buy your house from you, they're going to hire an inspector. The bank's going to have an inspector come buy your property. And their job is to pretty much find everything possibly wrong with the house, or even anything that could be wrong with the house, or that's kind of teetering the edge of unacceptable, where maybe your roof is starting to get a little bit worn. But they're going to dig up everything they can possibly find, and it's their job to get the buyer as much ammunition as possible. And there's a lot of times that you may think your house is, it might cosmetically look incredible, it might look awesome on the outside, but there might be a lot of issues kind of underneath the surface. And that's what they're going to discover, that's what they're going to find. And I can think of a couple houses where there wasn't much of an issue, but they found some mold. And if we had found that beforehand, we could have avoided this massive scenario where they ended up getting out of the deal at the last minute, and then we had to put it back on the market. And so it just really killed our profits in the sense of the annualized return got cut down, because now we're holding onto the house for another 2 months. And that's 2 extra months that we could have had that money working. And the best way that you can avoid this, the best way that you can combat this, is to get an inspector to come in advance. And you want someone who's going to be just as strict as anybody that's going to come in through the bank. And we took precautions in the past, and we got an inspector to do it for us, but he wasn't giving us good inspections. And so you don't have a good inspection really until you get another inspection by the bank later. But we found somebody else who came recommended by a realtor, and they give us incredibly high quality inspections. And on top of that, I think it's like $300, and they're going to take photos of everything. So you're going to have photos, and that's going to be great for insurance too. But what we've got now is this guy, and so before we start even working with the contractors, they come in and they do their inspection on the front end, and then before the property hits the market, they're going to do another inspection, because we want to be on the front end of all of this stuff. We want to give the buyers as little ammunition as possible. Because time and time again, this is where you've already got the asking price, and maybe it's at the top of that, and so there's no room wiggle or go up if they find a whole bunch of issues. And so you can take care of that on the front end, especially when you have the house opened up. That's going to be way better. Because if you have your house all finished, everything's done, and they got to come in and they got to do some kind of demo work, I mean, then you're going to have to redo the paint. You're going to have to then spend way more money than you initially needed to, because you could have done that when the house was already in the rehab stages. So getting that inspector to point out all of the issues and then get that handled before anybody could ever see that is going to help a lot.
Corey?
Yeah.
Share with us your wisdom from the trenches.
Wisdom. As it relates to inspections. Got me for a loop there, Dustin. I don't do a lot of inspections.
You know, I think another one then.
Josh, I'll throw
be,
back to you.
Yeah, just keeping your pulse on the deal. And there's other people, like the title company, for instance. It's their job, and it's going to be somebody else's job to keep the ball rolling and to stay on top of things. But if you want to keep your eye on the cheese, that's going to be the best way to keep everything rolling. Because I can think of one time that the title company just hadn't called the seller to set up a closing time. And so next thing you know, the seller is a little bit upset because no one's reached out to them, and it's the title company's job. But I think that may have ended up, I think this was a wholesale deal, and it might have ended up costing the dealer. They just got pissed, and so we were looking at maybe getting a good review, a good testimonial, and all of a sudden that's out the window. And while it's not necessarily our responsibility, if we had then called the title company and made sure all these moving pieces are kind of going well, then that's going to help as well. Because there's a lot of people involved. When you're selling a property at retail, you've got the bank, and then you've got their inspectors and their appraisers, and so all of these moving pieces. And if you have a great realtor, they're going to be on top of that, and you're not going to have to worry about that. But the more eyes on it, the better. And it's your money at the end of the day. I mean, you're going to have more of an interest in your money than your realtor, than the appraiser, than everybody else is going to be secondary. So make sure that you are on top of everything and following up with everybody and making sure that everything's moving like clockwork. And when it's not, then you can make that so. Yeah,
absolutely. And this is a very key point. When you have a lot of properties on the go, or even if you're just starting off, be sure to do us a favor and use some sort of organizational software like Asana or Basecamp or Trello, things like that, to just manage your projects and your tasks. Because if everything's in your inbox, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
And things are going to slip through the cracks. So please do us that favor and make sure that you're organized. So if you have any questions about investing, wholesaling, fixing or flipping, go ahead and ask them in the comments. And as you know, ask a question, enter to win one of these cool modern REI shirts. And we do a draw here every single week. So thanks a lot for watching. Hit that subscribe button, and we're looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.